He was supposed to kneel. Every manual says it. Every briefing drills it in. But after nearly 12 hours straight on the flight deck of USS Theodore Roosevelt during the frantic final days of Operation Desert Storm, Petty Officer John D. Bridges is running on fumes. So the unthinkable happens. Bridges crouches under the nose section of a Grumman A-6E Intruder, running a final check on the nose gear. He gives the thumbs up to the pilot. The pilot lights the J-52 turbojet. The realization hits in the exact instant the roar comes alive. He's standing, not kneeling, and he's right beside the intake. It's the middle of Operation Desert Storm. USS Theodore Roosevelt is on high alert. Its air wing launching and recovering aircraft around the clock. On a good day, carrier flight deck work is one of the most dangerous jobs in the world. The ship is a floating city at war, and the flight deck is its most volatile area. Its surface is slick with condensation, buffeted by the downdraft of helicopter rotors and the scorching blast of jet exhaust. Aircraft are constantly taxiing within arm's reach. Every few minutes, a catapult shot sends 25 tons of steel and fuel hurtling from 0 to 150 miles per hour in under 3 seconds, while another plane slams back down onto the deck just a few hundred feet away. For the men and women who work here, there's a danger in every step. It's the invisible suction of an engine intake, the sudden whip of a high-tension cable, the weight of a live missile being armed for launch. They learn to keep their head on a swivel, constantly alert and aware of their surroundings. During wartime, the stress multiplies. Crews are running on little sleep, working in 12 and 14-hour stretches under the glare of floodlights. Communication is cut through deafening noise. One missed hand signal can be catastrophic. Deck officers call the situation, quote, "a million accidents waiting to happen." Fatigue dulls reflexes. The routine becomes muscle memory, and with it comes the subtle danger of habit, a tendency to lean a little too close, to trust that the same move you made yesterday will be safe today. Petty Officer John D. Bridges knows this environment well. At 21, he's already spent countless hours in the green jersey of a flight deck maintenance crewman. His job tonight is simple: run final checks on a Grumman A-6E Intruder, make sure it's locked to the catapult, and clear it for launch. It's 3:41 a.m. on February 20th, 1991. USS Roosevelt's deck is lit in harsh white and red. Bridges moves toward the A-6E Intruder's nose gear. The launch crew is seconds from sending the jet hurtling off the bow. Protocol says he should kneel, keep his head below the invisible danger line of the engine's intake. But tonight, fatigue and habit take over, and he's standing. The pilot, inside the cockpit, begins the engine start sequence. The change in the air is instant and violent. The J-52 turbojet's intake comes alive like a living thing, drawing in everything around it. The force is more than twice the power of the most violent tornado ever recorded. At that range, there's no escape. Bridges feels the pull before he can react. In a blur, his float coat, goggles, helmet, and tools are ripped from his body. A deafening metallic roar swallows the sound of his own shout. Then comes the impact. His helmet and gear slam into the first stage fan blades, and a huge fireball erupts from the intake. Crewmen nearby freeze. Someone's been ingested. Inside, the engine begins to tear itself apart, and paradoxically, this gives Bridges a chance. The very foreign object damage that usually destroys engines is saving him. The shredded gear jams the fan, robbing the engine of power. The fireball signals the pilot that something's gone wrong. In the cockpit, the pilot slams the throttle back, but a jet engine doesn't stop instantly. The spinning fans take nearly 3 minutes to wind down. 3 minutes. For Bridges, trapped inside a metal tunnel with air roaring past his body, it may as well be an eternity. The engine's design gives him one more chance. The J-52's long pointed bullet cone protrudes ahead of the blades, and Bridges' arm, raised in a desperate reflex, wedges between it and the intake wall. He pushes with all his being to keep his skull away from the blades. His stop just short of being shredded alive. Outside, the crew can hardly believe what they see. A figure, clawing forward, inch by inch, emerging from the mouth of a jet engine. 3 minutes after he was swallowed by a 46,000 horsepower spewing beast, John D. Bridges drops onto the deck, alive. In almost every recorded case, being pulled into a jet engine is instantly fatal. The moment a body crosses that invisible threshold, there's nothing between flesh and the spinning blades moving so fast they could cut a steel bar into slices in the blink of an eye. In 2006, a mechanic at El Paso International Airport was pulled into the CFM56 engine of a Boeing 737 during maintenance and lost his life instantly. In 2017, an Air India service engineer suffered the same fate when an engine swallowed him before anyone could react. In January 2025, a Taiwanese Air Force officer was sucked into the engine of an indigenous defense fighter while it idled in a hangar. Even at slow standby speed, the turbine's pull was lethal. Civilian tragedies have been just as sudden. In July 2025, a 35-year-old man at Milan Bergamo Airport ran into the spinning engine of an Airbus A319. Investigators suspected this was intentional. Yet, on that February morning, Bridges found himself alive because three improbable factors converged in precisely the right order. The first was a coincidence of engineering. The Pratt & Whitney J52P8B engine that powered the A-6E Intruder carried a long, pointed aerodynamic cone at its center, projecting ahead of the first stage fans. Its purpose was to smooth airflow, not to save lives. But when Bridges was pulled in, his arm shot up in instinct, catching against the cone and wedging his body against the intake wall. The second factor was destruction itself. The suction had stripped him of his helmet, float coat, goggles, and tools before his body entered the intake. These slammed into the spinning fan, exploding into shrapnel that chewed into the blades and sent a fireball erupting out the front. Under normal circumstances, this kind of foreign object damage, or FOD in the language of the flight deck, is catastrophic, capable of destroying the engine mid-flight and downing an aircraft. This time, it starved the engine to power, slowing the pull just enough to keep him alive. The final link was human instinct. The pilot, sensing something was wrong, perhaps seeing the fireball, possibly feeling the shudder, slammed the throttle closed. It was the only correct move, but it had to be made instantly. Even then, the inertia of the massive turbine meant it would take nearly 3 agonizing minutes to spin down. Bridges endured every one of them in the engine's throat, lungs straining for air, muscles screaming as he fought to pull himself free. Take away any one of the elements, and Bridges would not have survived. When Bridges crawled out onto the deck, he was barely conscious. His collarbone was broken, his eardrum ruptured, his body marked with cuts and bruises from the debris. Compared to the violence he just endured, these were mercies. Most men in his position leave nothing behind but shredded gear and a frozen frame of video. He never returned to the flight deck during the remainder of Roosevelt's cruise. Whether that was an order or a personal choice is unclear, but it's hard to imagine walking back into the same space to the same engines after being inside one. The Navy doesn't keep public records of his psychological recovery, but years later, he would name his child Jet, perhaps a mark of ownership over the moment that could have ended his life. The incident didn't fade into obscurity. It was caught on video, and the footage became a fixture in military aviation training. In classrooms, from Navy tech schools to Air Force maintenance courses, instructors rolled the tape to drive home the dangers of the intake zone. The grainy image of a man being swallowed by an engine is far more persuasive than any checklist or manual. As one airman put it after seeing the film in training, quote, "That's not a gamble I'll ever take." Naval aviation, already built on hard lessons written in blood, took Bridges' experience as another catalyst for change. In the same year, the Navy introduced operational risk management, a systematic, proactive approach to identifying and reducing hazards before they turned into mishaps. PPE protocols were reinforced, pre-operation checks became more rigid, and situational awareness was drilled harder than ever. The head-on-a-swivel mentality became doctrine, not advice. Standard operating procedures were re-examined, and human factors, fatigue, stress, and communication breakdowns began to be treated as primary risk elements, not afterthoughts. Bridges' survival was in no way evidence of this situation being harmless. If anything, it was a reminder of how thin that margin truly is.